Welcome to Savage Kitchen. Today we are going to be trying some non-alcoholic whiskey alternatives. I've had quite a few people actually ask me about mocktails, and it's something I personally have sort of struggled with because I tend to enjoy very spirit-forward whiskey drinks. And up until recently, there weren't a lot of options on the market that sort of fill that niche. But did a little research. It turns out there are quite a few more now than they used to be. So we're going to try two of them today. We have first this Ritual whiskey alternative. And then second, we have this Kentucky 74 Spiritless. Now, I read about quite a few different brands, and these two seem to have the best reviews, and based on the things that I read, tasted most like whiskey, had the most similar bite to a whiskey. So I'm curious. And in particular, this Kentucky 74 labels itself as a bourbon replacement. So we'll see. All right, so first let's talk about why, right? Like, why would you want a whiskey alternative? If you're doing a dry January, if you are making some changes in your life and just want to be healthier, if you're pregnant maybe and don't want to be drinking alcohol, just drink water or juice or something, right? That was always my thought. However, I do get it. Cocktails are social and celebratory often. And so I can see how somebody may feel left out of that celebration when they don't have a cocktail in hand. And also, if you're like me, I genuinely enjoy the flavor of whiskey. I love what it does to the palate. I love how it pairs with different foods and desserts. So I would, if I were doing a dry January, or if I were not drinking for some other reason, I would miss that flavor. So I do get it. Also, if anybody ever pressures you into a cocktail, no, get the fuck out. You should never ever pressure somebody who is choosing not to drink, for whatever the reason may be, into a cocktail. That's very much a personal choice, and it shouldn't come with any sort of pressure. Okay, second thing I want to talk about is the ingredients and sugar content in these alternatives versus a regular bottle of whiskey or bourbon. So with both of these, the ingredient lists are very similar. So starting with the Ritual, ingredients are filtered water, cane sugar, natural flavors, I don't know which natural flavors, xanthan gum, citric acid, caramel color, so they're adding coloring to this one, sodium benzoate, I think that's how you say that, and potassium sorbate as preservatives. Also, this one has a shelf life of 12 weeks after open. So right away we have a few differences from your traditional distilled spirit with alcohol in it. These have preservatives in it. Alcohol is naturally a preservative. You don't need to add preservatives to alcohol. This isn't alcohol, so clearly there's a need to add some preservatives. I'm a little skeptical of the caramel color. I get it, you know, if you want it to be a whiskey alternative, there's something about the look, but do we really need to be adding food coloring to something we're ingesting? I don't know. The addition of cane sugar. Bourbon tends to be naturally sweet. Point to note, bourbon does not have added sugar to it. In a regular glass of just bourbon, by the way, I'm running a little low, there's no added sugar in bourbon. So if you're drinking just a shot of bourbon, right? I'm not talking about a cocktail, but just if you're drinking bourbon neat, whiskey neat, I think it's something like 0.04 grams of sugar in an ounce of bourbon. So that is very, very low sugar content. So if you're doing a keto diet for the year, or if you're diabetic and you're just trying to keep your sugar content low, drinking a distilled spirit neat is actually going to be your best bet. However, I'm not trying to talk you into alcohol. I just want you to be aware of the choices that you're making, especially if this is a health decision for you. There's a lot of benefits to not drinking alcohol, right? And to me, the biggest one, I think, is the fact that you're probably going to get better sleep. There's this irony, right, that a glass of wine before bed or a little nightcap, while it might help you fall asleep, you actually probably have a lower quality of sleep throughout the night because of what the alcohol's doing to your body. We're gonna open this Ritual whiskey alternative first. Dear Lord. Whoa. Not what I expected it to smell like. It smells sweet right away. It also My instant thought smelling it was of apple cider vinegar. It smells a little like there's certainly an acidity that I'm getting right on the nose. And Band-Aids? That's odd. It's not unpleasant. It's just not what I expected. It definitely smells sweet. It smells of apples, a little bit of baking spices, a little bit of caramel, but there's also a, I don't know if that's a smokiness that I'm smelling, but it almost reminds me of the smell that sometimes you'll get with mezcal, which I always associate with Band-Aids. Sorry, it's just the truth. Interesting. All right, let's pour it out. So I'm sorry, I poured that a little low. In pouring this, it's thick, sort of like a liqueur, like that has a high sugar content. You can always tell when you're pouring it. It just has like, it looks silkier. It's very, like the way it coats the glass, it's real thick. Again, it's not unpleasant to smell. It does not smell like whiskey. And just to be sure, I'm going to pour out a little bit of whiskey as sort of like a control. So the smell on the traditional alcoholic bourbon is that, I mean, obviously there's the ethanol smell, which is going to be absent in our alternatives. This one smells particularly oaky. I think that might be what's missing from the Ritual. I don't smell the oak. And this one smells heavily of vanilla, also a little bit of baking spices. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so back to the Ritual. Let's give it a taste. Let's try it again. Ooh, it does things. Damn it, I want to like this. Ooh. Okay. I really want to like this because like I said, I do have a lot of people in my life who have given up drinking for a variety of reasons. And I fully support that. And also as a hostess, don't ever want somebody to not feel included. However, I don't know that this one in particular is the answer. It does taste a little bit like caramel apples. There's definitely caramel notes. There's definitely apple. There is a bite there. There's actually a heat to this, but it is reminiscent of a cayenne versus the heat that you get from ethanol or alcohol. It definitely has that, what is it? Capsaicin? I think that's the spice. We need to look that up. It definitely has a pepper spice to it, and not bell pepper, like a hot cayenne pepper spice to it on the finish. It's not right up front. Up front, tastes like apples and caramel. Not exactly in the way I would want it to. I love apples. I love caramel. Let's reserve judgment and try the Kentucky 74. And I need a palate cleanse after that. Oof. All right, let's try the Spiritless 74 that is branded as a distilled non-alcoholic spirit for bourbon cocktails. Which is interesting that they say specifically on the bottle that it is for bourbon cocktails. There's a very good chance that these are not meant to be enjoyed neat, right? Like, it's going to be worth trying these each in a cocktail to see what it does to the cocktail, really to give them a fair shot. But as far as a one-to-one replacement, first of all, I can't get in the friggin' bottle. Just tasting it on its own so far, the Ritual, not my fave. All right, I need a knife. It's definitely not them with the bottle. It's me. I have trouble getting out of doors too. Kentucky 74 Spiritless. It's a beautiful bottle. So the ingredient list on this is just about the same as the Ritual, absent the caramel color. This is actually aged in a barrel, and so I'm assuming then that the distillate gets its coloring directly from a barrel. Woo! Different scents on this one. I don't get apple. So the other one, I got apples right away, and it was so heavily apple. I don't get that at all with this. I do get similar spices, baking spices. Maybe a little bit of oak. On the nose, smelling this one is much more pleasant. The other one wasn't unpleasant, but it also, I don't know, something about it didn't seem quite right. And I'm not saying quite right in relation to whiskey. Obviously, these are going to be different than whiskey. It just, I don't know. It didn't smell right in general to me. Like my internal warning alarms went off, like, don't drink this. Where this smells pretty good. It smells, I really get a lot of vanilla with this and a lot of baking spices, a little bit of oak. I don't get apples. Oh, I do get it on my nose. Oh, right away. This is thinner than the Ritual. It doesn't, the viscosity is still, it's still thicker than a whiskey, but thinner than the Ritual. And it's absent that Band-Aid smell, for lack of a better term. Yeah, I'm actually excited to sip this one. This smells really good. Oh, please. I want to like it. So let's hope it's delicious. Damn. I think the only way, we're going to have to try these in cocktails. So, okay. It does not taste the way it smells. Bottom line, it doesn't have the bite that the Ritual had or that whiskey has. It's not unpleasant. It might be a little unpleasant. It's disappointing because it does smell so good. And again, it doesn't smell like whiskey. It just smells like something delicious that I'd like to drink. And by the way, I drink whiskey neat regularly. I enjoy bitter drinks. I love Fernet. I like Campari. So my palate's pretty broad, I would say. I definitely am not somebody that gravitates towards just sweet things. And in fact, I want this as a whiskey alternative to have some bite, to have some teeth, so that when I mix it into a cocktail, it's balanced. Let's smell real whiskey again. Oh, so good. Wow. Okay. So not that I'm biased or anything. Tasting real whiskey, bourbon, with alcohol in it, compared to both of these is night and day. It is absolutely not even close. I'm disappointed to say that because I really do want to like these and I want to be able to have some alternatives for guests. And even for myself, like I am definitely not opposed to mocktails. I just haven't found the things that work for me. I think what we're going to try is we'll do a separate episode, and I think we'll try making either an old fashioned or a Manhattan with these. One of the bottles, the Kentucky 74, actually does suggest that if you were trying to reduce your alcohol intake, to do a half and half. So whatever your cocktail ratios are, do half of it of your regular bourbon or whiskey spirit and half of it with the 74 to reduce your alcohol intake. They also say reduce your sugar intake, but that's bullshit because there's actually less sugar in bourbon than there is in this. The other thing to note is the price on these. They are not cheap. Each of these bottles was more than $30. I think one of them was like $37 and the other one was $34-ish. I got to look at the receipts again. But to me, to pay for, and they're both 750 milliliters, but neither one of them are alcohols and neither one of them really stand up on their own. So you'd have to be mixing them with other things. And if I'm going to use a liquid to mix with other spirits or non-spirits, I don't want it to cost that much, quite honestly. And like, I love spending money. I'm really good at it, as it turns out. Final thoughts between the two. Oh, it's really tough. They are very different from each other. I would say, I think my personal preference, if I had to choose between the two, is going to be the Kentucky 74. It smells delicious. It tastes okay. It doesn't taste like whiskey. It might be okay in a whiskey style cocktail though. We'll find out in a separate episode. For the ritual, it smells okay. It tastes a little weird. It's nothing like whiskey. However, it does have a sort of cayenne bite to it that might be pleasing in cocktails. So I'm very curious to see how these change when we introduce other elements to them, even if that other element is simply ice. But I do think adding a little bit of syrup and a little bit of bitters, an old-fashioned, will kind of change the game here a little bit. So we'll try that. So stay tuned. So thanks for joining me. If you guys have any suggestions in the comments for other alcohol-free spirits, so whiskey alternatives, gin alternatives, let me know. I'm very, very curious. I would like to find some good alternatives. And also stay tuned. I got a seed lip sampler of all 3 of the seed lip flavors, which that's kind of a tongue twister. So we'll be trying that as well. So thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.